In that case, I think it's time for the BFL Weekly Update.
Yes.
I was practicing that over the weekend, and I could not get it right. And I still don't think I got it right. I think
that was perfect, dude.
I think it was a little off.
That was awesome. That was fantastic.
All right, well, BFL Weekly Update. I just talked to these guys today. Hopefully my insight is fresh.
Yeah, this should be fresh in your brain.
Yeah, I'm going to start out with the guy who actually I wasn't able to record. I don't have any audio from.
Okay.
But Sawyer Grace won the Arkie Division event on Lake Dardanelle. He got 22 pounds even.
That was the young guy, right?
Yeah, the young guy. He's only 20.
Okay.
He's younger than the amount of fish he caught, or than the pounds of fish he caught. He's
That's kind of a funny stat, I guess. I never thought about that before. And he's also a college fishing guy, right?
He is. He goes to Arkansas Tech University. He's on their team. And
college fishing anglers, showing him how it's done.
Yeah, he was pretty excited to be. He said he was excited to be so young and to have won a BFL already.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's certainly a good track to be on. Anyhow, he had a key stretch of pads up the river that he fished with a booyah poppin' frog, and then he also fished some brush piles out deeper in the lake out in the main lake deeper with a Yum 10-inch plum ribbon-tail worm. So just sort of dragging it along, and that's how he made it work.
Congratulations, young Sawyer Grace.
All right,
Arkansas Tech University representing.
Yeah, for sure.
On that BFL circuit.
Our next event, I get to do a sound effect for again.
Yeah.
The Choo Choo division.
Oh my God.
Curry Holly caught 24 pounds 2 ounces, big bag of the weekend, on Pickwick Lake, which has a lot of big bags. He was doing something a little bit offbeat, and I'm going to let him talk about that right now.
I actually stayed upriver. My practice was I was actually trying to stay away from the crowds on the ledges. I stayed up basically from Cane Creek up to the dam area. The whole time I practiced, I actually stayed shallow the whole time. And most of my fish came from basically top water to 6 feet. It's about the way my day went, and the way I'd been fishing, and just got on a good little bite like that, through the last 2 weeks or so, and had a lot less pressure, up there than it was down the lake. Anywhere you fish down there, you're definitely trying to fish. You're using the current. I don't care if you're down the lake or up the lake. I actually guide there also. And but everything was related to kind of the current. I was fishing a lot of points, creek miles points, the bluff breaks and eddies, around the bluffs and the breaks in the bluffs, and the edge of the current too. So it's kind of a mixture there, but mostly points and like I said, bluff. The breaks on the bluffs and that kind of thing.
The thing that was interesting to me about Holly's win was that he wasn't ledge fishing, and I think I know we're used to seeing Jay Yellis on Kentucky Lake run into Barkley, but because we're launching in Paris, I think have the opportunity to maybe see some people who don't ledge fish, sort of how we saw Hackney not really ledge fish at Pickwick. So I think that's cool, and I'd be interested to see if that goes forward as guys not ledge fishing being a successful pattern.
Congratulations.
All right, next up in the Piedmont division, or is it Piedmont?
I think it's Piedmont.
Okay, I like calling it Piedmont though. Anyhow, Piedmont division, High Rock Lake, Todd Harris. He caught 19-1, picked up the W. He fished docks. He was really dialed in, and right now I'm going to let him talk about some of his real specific keys to his win.
I targeted probably 25 docks, and I only fished those individual docks. So I didn't, just go down the bank. I went from one dock to the other, basically. I pick up the trolling motor after I finished one and go to the next one. And it was kind of strategic, to be honest. I did not revisit one dock all day. The key was really two things. One, knowing the early morning bite dock, which I caught 4 keepers earlier in the morning, and it wasn't, just solid keepers. They weren't that great a fish, just to get my day going. And then I waited I told my partner earlier in the morning, I said, the only chance I have is, considering the smaller fish I had, right, I was like, the only chance I have is waiting for the boat traffic and just, patiently waiting for my really good docks for that boat traffic to kick in and then push the shad down, push the brim down, and the bass will get active. I was pretty dialed in, I'll be honest. I have been for a few years now. I was actually flipping 2 baits, and they were both plastic. I was flipping the 4.2 beaver, sweet beaver, on one bait, and the other one was just a black and blue. Both were black and blue, and they were both the worm. I was just flipping a worm. The worm I chose has a super big tail. It displaces a lot of water, and when the water heats up, the shad pull up to the top, right? And it's for oxygen. So my experience on that lake is that this time of year you want to use something with a big tail that displaces water, kind of mimics a shad instead of fishing just a regular ribbon tail kind of fluttering. This is more of a side-to-side type action, and it produces, I think, bigger bites.
So congratulations to Mr. Harris, who picked up the win on his home lake.
Yeah, fantastic. He was a really cool guy to talk to, too. He was very interesting, and it's always neat when you have someone who is as honed in as he is.
Yeah, he sounded pretty dialed in.
For sure. Next up, the Illini division on Lake Shelbyville. Wayne Shaw, another guy, picking up the win on his home lake. He caught 20 pounds, 2 ounces. And I'm going to let him talk now a little bit just about how his day went and what he targeted.
We started fishing deep pretty much fished deep the whole day. I mean, I guess not super deep, but just around, anywhere from 12 to 20 foot of water probably. We were fishing some drop-offs at some points that had brush and rock on it. I think we only fished about 6 spots all day. When you're fishing deep like that, you kind of got to take your time, and it was just one of them days where everything went right. When it's your day, and I just made some good decisions at the right time, I guess. I caught the big fish about 12:30, and I had 5 at that time. And that called my small one out, and probably, I don't know, it upgraded me probably 5 pounds, I would imagine. The one I had was actually the one that I culled was the first fish that I caught, and it was the smallest fish, and you had to work it to get it to touch 14 inches.
The thing that was interesting to me about his win was how slow he fished. He said he only fished 6 spots all day, and that really requires a lot of confidence and a lot of patience to slug it out on just 6 different areas all day long. So I thought that was impressive. Congratulations to Wayne on his win.
Definitely. Something else fun to note here, BFL All-American champion Marcus Sikora with another top 10. This is now He had one last weekend, which was the week after his BFL win. So now this is his third week in a row where he's got a BFL top 10.
Are we entirely sure he hasn't had a BFL top 10 the week before? Maybe he's at like 4, 5, 6, 7?
No, I'm not sure. But Sakura's definitely cashing some checks lately.
Yeah, he's on a roll, and more power to him. I love it, and I want to see him get on that roll in the Forest Wood Cup. I think that would be very cool.
Definitely.
Next up, Hoosier Division on Lake Patoka. John Melton caught 19 pounds, 12 ounces. And I'm going to let him talk a little bit about his decision to stay on his key area.
Basically, I had about 10 or 12 spots, but I only ended up on my first spot, and I caught a couple there early, and then it kind of stopped. I missed a couple, and then I wanted to leave, and I had a couple fish, and I said, well, I better go ahead and stay here for a little bit. My co-angler, because he was telling me, he said, stay here. He said, you shouldn't leave. And I thought, well, maybe I shouldn't. So then I finally caught another. It was a little bigger than the other two. And I said, well, I stayed there for a little. Took me almost another hour, and then I caught about a 7-pounder, and I said, well, maybe he was right for staying. He caught one, and he missed one, so, and then I stayed there about another hour, and that was making my other spots go to, not do as good. So then I fished, and I couldn't get another bite, so I seen the fish kind of seemed like they was moving, and they quit biting there, so I started moving.
Now, we know Melton obviously stayed on that key spot. That key spot was a weed line, about 12 feet of water, that had some wood and brush mixed in, which just sounds like heaven to me when you've got weeds and some wood and stuff out in 12 feet. And he was throwing a jig the whole time, which sounds like a perfect place for a jig. It's why I always write down jig as one of the possible winning baits. So I thought that was really cool. He said he had some live well troubles throughout the day. He actually, I think, he may have had 2 fish die. I'm not entirely sure, but he had a trying day, and it's really cool when a guy can come away with the win.
Definitely, and he only won by 2 ounces too. So those, fish penalties. Like I said, you're not sure if he did, but it kind of sounded like that. And if that did happen, I mean, that could have cost him.
Yeah. Regardless, he had an impressive tournament and an impressively close win that could have gone either way.
It was really cool to see him get the win after zeroing last year. Like he mentioned, he struggles on Lake Patoka, and he was skunked there in the BFL event last June. So for him to come back this June, and get the win, it's pretty impressive.
For sure. And then finally, to cap off our weekend, we're going to go north to the Great Lakes Division on the Wolf River chain. I like that song. To the Wolf River chain, Mike Mayen, or Mike Mayen. I'm not entirely sure. I think it's Mayen, to be honest. He caught 15 pounds, 7 ounces. Picked up the W. He actually picked his area to fish, fishing up in the river, based on about 3 hours of going fishing the week before with a buddy. And he was like, man, this looks good. This feels right. I'm going to go up there and get it done.
It sounds risky, trying to plan your tournament out that far in advance.
It sounds risky. And he actually finished second in a tournament the weekend before, fishing out in Lake Winnebago, in the big lake. But he just was feeling that the river was the place to go.
I say that's where most people fish there on the Wolf River chain, right? Is Lake Winnebago?
I think a lot of people fish there, but probably most people do fish there, but I don't think it's, 100%. You got to go into Winnebago.
Sure.
So yeah, he obviously had a, really unique, choice to make, and he made it, and it worked out for him. And I'm going to let him talk a little bit now just about his actual fishing, how he caught them, what he used.
Back in 1992, that Winneconne was the first place I ever won a tournament at, and I fished the exact same way as when I won that tournament. And I was throwing a bass assassin just towards the shorelines, working the weed edges and everything, and it just worked. They were on it. It was the only thing that was really working for me, too. So, can't complain. Soft jerkbait is what I throw. I've been throwing that for, 20-some years. It was the silver, like a silver minnow with the black fleck, and then it had the chartreuse tail on it. The water came up a lot with the rains and everything, So we literally had 2 to 3 foot gaps between the weeds and the rocks and the weeds in the bank, and that's where they were cruising.
So Mayan, he had the soft jerkbait working for him. Worked out great, obviously. Picked up the win. Congratulations to him.
Absolutely.
And I believe that concludes our BFL weekly update. I think we're done for the week with that, and thanks to everybody who's tuned in so far. And that has been the BFL weekly update. For more like this, check out the rest of the FLW podcast at flwoutdoors.com or on iTunes.